Here's something I want you to sit with for a second. You walk past a monkey. You haven't done anything. You're just walking. Neutral. Calm. Minding your own business. The monkey glances at you and looks away. Normal? Unremarkable. Now, same scenario. But this time, 5 minutes earlier, you took something that wasn't yours. Or you startled another animal. Or you broke a social rule that the group had established. You didn't do it to the monkey. You didn't do it anywhere near the monkey. But it happened. And somehow, in ways that researchers are still working to fully explain, the monkey's response to you is different. Subtly, but measurably different. Not because it saw what you did, but because something in how you're carrying yourself has changed. Something in your behavioral signature has shifted. And the monkey's social detection system, one of the most finely calibrated instruments in the animal world, picked it up. This is not mystical. This is science, and it is considerably more unsettling than it sounds. Hey, welcome back to Primal Mind. So we've talked on this channel about how monkeys know when you're lying to them, how they detect nervousness, how they build trust profiles of specific individuals over time. Today, we're going somewhere that connects all of those things and takes them one step further. Because the question I kept coming back to while researching this video is, do monkeys have any sense of right and wrong? Not in the philosophical human sense, but in the functional behavioral sense. Do they track whether the individuals around them are behaving in ways that are fair, honest, and consistent? And do they respond differently to individuals who aren't? The answer, it turns out, is yes. In ways that are more sophisticated than most people expect. Before we get into the specific behaviors, we need to talk about something called moral emotions. In humans, moral emotions are the feelings that get activated when social norms are violated. Guilt, shame, indignation, contempt. They're the emotional engine behind our sense of right and wrong. And for a long time, researchers assumed they were uniquely human, a product of culture, language, and conscious ethical reasoning. Then primatology started pushing back on that assumption hard. Frans de Waal spent decades documenting what he called the building blocks of morality in primates: empathy, fairness, reciprocity, the punishment of norm violations. Not full human morality, but the emotional and behavioral foundations that human morality is built on top of. And what he kept finding was that monkeys don't just react to their own treatment. They react to how they observe others being treated. They track whether the social environment around them is operating fairly. They have emotional responses to violations of expected social norms, even when those violations don't directly affect them. That is not a simple stimulus response animal. That is an animal with something that functions like a social conscience. Okay, so now let's talk about you. Specifically, what happens to your body when you've done something wrong? Guilt and shame activate the stress response system. Cortisol levels rise, heart rate increases slightly, gaze behavior changes. People who feel guilty tend to make less direct eye contact or make eye contact and then break it faster than normal. Posture shifts, slight forward curl, reduced body expansion. Movement becomes slightly less fluid, slightly more self-monitoring. None of this is conscious. You don't decide to carry yourself differently when you feel guilty. Your nervous system just does it. And here is the critical thing. These are exactly the signals that primate social detection systems are built to read. The gaze changes, the postural shifts, the micro-alterations in movement fluidity, the subtle changes in how much space you take up and how confidently you occupy it. A monkey that has spent years reading the behavioral signatures of individuals in its social environment has an extraordinarily finely tuned sense of what normal looks like for any given person. And when that normal shifts, even slightly, even in ways you're completely unaware of, the deviation gets noticed. You cannot fully hide what you're carrying. Your body broadcasts it, and the monkeys are listening. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Researchers studying primate social behavior have documented something called third-party responses to norm violations, situations where a monkey that was not directly involved in a conflict or unfair interaction nevertheless responds to it. In chimp groups, third-party individuals have been observed intervening in conflicts where the intervention carries personal cost to them, not because they were directly threatened, but because something about the social dynamic of the conflict triggered a response. The wrong individual was being targeted, the behavior violated an established social pattern, something was off. In capuchins, remember our video on them? The inequity aversion response famously extends beyond the individual being treated unfairly. Group members who observe unfair treatment show behavioral and physiological signs of disturbance even when they themselves received a fair outcome. What this means is that primate social monitoring is not just self-interested, it is genuinely social. The group is tracking the fairness and consistency of social interactions across the entire group dynamic, not just in their own individual transactions. And when someone in that environment has done something that violated the social contract, even something the monkey didn't directly witness, the ripple effects in their behavior are readable. The group picks up on them. Here's the specific mechanism that I think explains most of what we're talking about. Monkeys build detailed behavioral models of every individual they interact with regularly. As we've discussed in previous videos, trust in the primate world is based almost entirely on behavioral consistency, on whether an individual's actions match their established patterns over time. When you do something that violates your own behavioral baseline, when you act in a way that is inconsistent with the pattern the monkey has built of you, that inconsistency gets flagged. Not necessarily as this person did something wrong in a conscious moral sense, but as this person's behavior has deviated from their established pattern in a way that I cannot yet explain. And unexplained behavioral deviation in the primate threat assessment system is treated as a signal worth monitoring, worth being cautious about, worth updating the trust model over. The monkey doesn't need to know what you did. It just needs to detect that something about you is different from the baseline it learned. And that detection, that shift in how it relates to you, is functionally indistinguishable from a response to moral wrongdoing. Because in a social environment where consistent, trustworthy behavior is the currency of relationships, behaving badly and behaving inconsistently produce the same signal. This is the question I know a lot of you are asking right now, and the honest answer is not really, not from a sufficiently attentive primate. You can control your conscious behavior. You can decide not to make direct eye contact or to move slowly or to avoid the animal. But that controlled behavior is itself a signal. Overly managed behavior reads as effortful in a way that natural, relaxed behavior does not. Think about it from the monkey's perspective. It has a detailed model of how you normally move, how you normally interact, how you normally occupy space. When that model suddenly doesn't match what it's observing, when everything about you seems slightly too deliberate, slightly too controlled, slightly off from your normal baseline, the mismatch generates exactly the kind of alert response we've been describing. Trying to hide guilt produces the behavioral signature of someone trying to hide something, which is, in many ways, worse than just being guilty. The only thing that actually works, the only thing that research and experience consistently point to, is resolving the internal state, not managing the external performance of it, actually addressing whatever created the guilt or shame in the first place. Which brings us somewhere the science probably didn't expect to go. Here's the thought that I couldn't shake after going deep on this research. We built legal systems, religious frameworks, and social institutions specifically to manage the problem of wrong behavior in groups. We created confession and apology and restitution. We developed therapy and self-reflection and all manner of conscious tools for processing guilt and reintegrating into social life after a violation. And underneath all of that, predating every human institution by millions of years, is a primate social detection system that was already solving this problem, already tracking behavioral consistency, already flagging individuals whose actions didn't match their established patterns, already creating social consequences for norm violations that the violator couldn't fully conceal. We didn't invent social accountability, we inherited it. The monkey watching you with slightly more attention than usual, recalibrating its trust model based on signals you didn't even know you were sending, is running the original version of a system that human civilization has been elaborating on ever since. So, monkeys know when you've done something wrong, not because they have a moral code in the philosophical sense, not because they judged your intentions or weighed your actions against an ethical framework, but because their social detection systems are sensitive enough to read the behavioral changes that moral emotions produce in your body, changes that you cannot fully suppress, cannot fully hide, and cannot fully fake your way out of. The social world for any primate is a place of continuous monitoring, of behavioral pattern tracking, of trust models being built and updated and occasionally broken. And the individuals who navigate it most successfully, in monkey groups and in human ones, are not the ones who are best at hiding what they've done. They are the ones who have the least to hide. If this video made you think about something, about social accountability, about the signals we send without knowing it, about what it means to be watched by a mind that reads you more accurately than you read yourself, I want to hear about it in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, this is what we do every week. Stay curious, stay primal.